Today on Mr. Media, we're live at Bill Jackson's Shop for Adventure in Pinellas Park, Florida, talking to Tampa Bay Times outdoors editor Terry Tomalin. He's the author of a new book, Everyday Adventures, a Florida Outdoors Guide. Stick around. Terry's going to regale us with stories of exciting outdoor stuff he's done and enjoyed. You know, the kind of stuff I wouldn't do on a bat. Mr. Media is recorded live before a retail audience of people who kayak, canoe, scuba dive, shoot guns, ski, paddleboard, zip line, bike, and camp for fun, not profit, in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Adventure? I've had adventure. There was that time in the hot air balloon at Brandon, Florida, for starters. And, alright, that's pretty much been about it. Now, I've canoed, I've kayaked, I've fished. I do live in Florida, for crying out loud, but that's really the extent of my adventures on the edge of the great outdoors. My old friend Terry Tomlin, however, has made a virtual cottage industry of looking for family-style fun above and below the Sunshine State's surface. As outdoor editor for the Tampa Bay Times, he's enjoyed a license to thrill for many, many years. Now Terry has taken his tales to the next step with the publication of his first book, Everyday Adventures, a Florida Outdoors Guide. To showcase Terry and his stories, I thought it'd be fun to do today's interview from Tampa Bay's legendary epicenter of outdoors supplies, Bill Jackson's Shop for Adventures in Pinellas Park, Florida. It's not just a store, it's a destination, with an indoor pool for scuba and kayak instruction, an indoor ski deck, which you can see behind me, and even a shooting range. I think you'll enjoy this. Terry Tomalin, welcome to Mr. Media.
Great to be here, thanks.
Good to see you. Hey, we've known each other for about 25 years. That's frightening to say out loud. And I dare say that you are the envy of every journalist in Florida with your job. How does a guy get to be an outdoors editor anyway?
Well, that's funny. People ask that a lot. And I started off, as you know, in the news department for about 7 years, covering everything from murders to the Ku Klux Klan. And then I quit my job and I went backpacking through New Zealand and Australia for a year. And I was climbing volcanoes and running whitewater rivers and scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef. You know, when I came back and they wanted me to cover government, I spent about one day in a county commission meeting and, you know, talking about millage rates and taxes, and that was enough to make me find another career. So they created this job for me in sports, and it's been 20-something years, and I'm loving it.
So, Terry, what is the essence of an everyday adventure in Florida? I mean, what elements does it have?
Well, basically, what I try to do is think of something that I haven't done before or that sounds like fun for either me or my friends or my kids, and get somebody else to pay for it and go out and do it. And I have an adventure just walking around the supermarket, so really, if you open up the whole outdoors, you can make an adventure anywhere you go, and there's no shortage of places in Florida. Gosh, this is a huge state, and it's really like 3 different states because we have the Panhandle, and then we have the middle part of the state, and then we have the tropical Everglades and Florida Keys. So I've been doing the job for 22 years and I've never run out of ideas. And I think that the key to an adventure is anything that'll get you up and off the couch, outside, in my category, is an adventure.
Now, let's put that to the test. Let's challenge you here. We're in the camping department at Bill Jackson's. So tell us maybe 3 ideas for camping adventures or outdoor type of overnight adventures. Okay,
well, I'll break it down for you this way. If people think of Florida, they think of fishing, they think of boating, but they don't realize that we have more than 1,000 miles of Florida trail that goes from Big Cypress in the southern end of the state to Gulf Shores, National Seashore in the Panhandle. So there are countless trails. There's more than 180 state parks. So I would think that you would start off with a day hike. And my recommendation for a fantastic day hike within a half-hour drive of the Tampa Bay area is Hillsborough River State Park. Once you've conquered your 3 to 5 mile day hike, then you want to do something a little more ambitious. So I would go on an overnight hike, maybe at Myakka River State Park, about an hour south of Tampa in Sarasota, and hike through the classic Florida pine flatwoods, scrub hammock, and oak trees, and really see what old Florida was. So once you've done your overnight hike, then I would say, okay, maybe I'll do 2 or 3 days to get you prepped to do something like the Appalachian Trail. I'd head to Ocala National Forest, about 2 hours north of Tampa, and hike the Florida Trail through the forest, go from spring to spring, spend 3 days, get yourself a good backpack and a pair of hiking shoes, and you'll be all set. And I guarantee you that this is an adventure that rivals any other place in the United States. I've been all around the world, from the ice-covered mountains of New Zealand to the steamy jungles of the Amazon, and still love Florida. It's my favorite place to be.
So I've got a couple days in Florida, and I'm not the most adventurous. What are 2 things I can do, whether it's camping or water, whatever it is? Just 2. We're actually in a store, folks. You can tell now.
And that's the gunshots in the background are the shooting range. So don't be concerned about our safety.
So we're not actually taking on fire. That's too bad.
Incoming!
Yeah. So I'm in Florida. I'm not terribly adventurous. Can you recommend like 1 or 2 things that I could do to make me feel kind of an outdoorsy guy?
Yeah, and I tell you, there's if you come to Florida, you want to do like a nice mellow camping trip. One of the best campgrounds in the United States is at Fort DeSoto County Park. It's consistently ranked up there in the top 10. It's a nice, friendly family campground, and the great thing about it is that it's very safe, it's very controlled, it's very protected, and the bathrooms are real close, so it's a great place to take kids. You have access, you're right on the water, and you have access to the beach, and you have access to hikes, and access to canoeing, kayaking, fishing, you name it. So if you're a first-timer, Fort DeSoto County Park is the place to be. And my second recommendation, if you want to do something that's really special to Florida and you don't have any experience, I would go tubing on one of our spring-fed rivers. And there's 2 that come to mind, the Ichetucknee up near Gainesville and the Rainbow River in Dunellen. Both of these places have state-run outfitters that will rent you an inner tube. It's best to go when it's a little warmer out and float down the river. You sit in the inner tube, you float down for an hour or 2, and you get out, they drop you off and pick you up, and you just kick back and enjoy the Florida sunshine and the cool, clear, spring-fed water. It can't be beat.
So Terry, you're sitting in a kayak. Tell us about some of the water-based adventures you've enjoyed the most.
Well, you know, we live on a peninsula, both here in Pinellas County and the state of Florida, surrounded by water. There's thousands of miles of coastline. There's hundreds of rivers, there's countless lakes, so there's no shortage of places to paddle. So naturally, if you've done any type of backpacking or any type of hiking in the woods, you realize that after a while it gets hard to carry that load, especially in a warm climate, subtropical climate like Florida. So paddling is a great way to get around, see the state, and carry a lot of gear with you. So I spend a lot of time in kayaks and on paddle boards.
The thing about kayaking and paddleboarding and canoeing, for that matter, in Florida, seems to be that almost anywhere you go where there's water, there's a business set up so you can rent. You don't even have to come prepared.
No, you can. It's great because there's places such as Fort DeSoto County Park, one of the top-rated beaches in the United States, has a kayak livery. So even if you have never kayaked before, you can paddle in shallow water and get a little taste for it. And that's what most people do, is they go out and they rent a kayak for the morning or the afternoon, and then they want to come back and do it again and maybe try it someplace else, and they go to a river and then go to a lake and then do it in the ocean, and next thing you know, they're starting to look around at a place like this, Bill Jackson's Shop for Adventure, to buy their own boat so they can do it all the time.
I'm sorry, what is it they do in the ocean exactly?
They get out there and paddle. I mean, I've literally paddled from the Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia to the Bahamas. You know, I've paddled from Florida to the Bahamas. So there's no shortage of places to go.
And what are some of those that are, the most challenging for somebody who's got some experience doing this?
Well, you know, Florida is really unique in the sense that the State Department of Environmental Protection has put together a circumnavigational trail that goes all the way around the state. So you can, it's broken up into segments, and you can pick different segments around the state and paddle for 4 or 5 days, camp out along the coastline, have designated campgrounds, have prefigured mileage. So it really takes some of the guesswork out of it, especially if you're a visitor from out of state. So coastal kayaking is great, and you could make a goal for yourself to do the whole state, or you could pick out one of the more challenging sections, for example, like the 10,000 Islands from Chokoloskee on the edge of the Everglades to Flamingo. That's a 99-mile trip, and it's just phenomenal paddling. Another great one is to do the paddle from the mainland of Florida to Key West along the Florida Keys. You know, that's a good 7 to 10 day paddle there too. So pretty much you can take your finger and put it on the map of Florida, and wherever you end up, you're going to find yourself a challenging paddle.
Terry, one of the tips that I did not see in the book was if you're from out of state and you come here and you're going to be in the backwoods, first thing you should do is buy a Florida State, University of Florida, or Miami Hurricane shirt, sweatshirt, something. Kind of give the impression that you're part of the land.
And make sure it's camouflage. I think that in most of the state, unless you're down in the Everglades, most of the state, you got a 50-50 chance of being right if you go with Florida or Florida State. But you got to make sure that that hat is camo, because camo is the color.
Now, what about the book is very big on family-friendly stuff. What are, on the water, what are some of the more family-friendly adventures you recommend?
Well, you know, people are often intimidated by Florida because it seems, you know, there's alligators and there's snakes and there's sharks. They read about this, but you know, I really wouldn't worry about that. My friend Randy Wayne White once wrote that, you know, great Florida adventure writer and novelist once wrote that, you know, when a child is born, they don't know whether you're a goat herding nomad or an IBM executive. And what that says is that, you know, you can take that kid and mold them any way you want. And my rule has always been, as soon as they're out of pull-ups, they're ready to go on adventures. So the key with kids is to keep them hydrated, make sure you have plenty of snacks, and pick a adventure that is small enough or short enough that they don't get bored and turned off to the outdoors. I remember I took a trip with my 4-year-old down the Suwannee River. He's now 10, but when he was 4. And what I did is I had a friend, Darry Jackson, paddle ahead and bury plastic dinosaurs along the shoreline, and we would stop, and I was teaching him about fossils, and we'd find these plastic dinosaurs. I had to explain to him later that they really weren't fossils, but nonetheless, he got a big kick out of it, and it made an adventure out of it for him. So you can come up with a plan, make a treasure map, have different goals for them to achieve, and you know, they'll just love it. They'll fall in love with the outdoors.
Terry Tomlin, super dad.
I wish.
All right, Terry, we're over by the paddle boards because you wanted to tell folks a little bit about how easy this is. I'm not convinced, but you go right ahead.
I tell you, paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding is the fastest growing water sport in the United States. It's low maintenance, it's easy, and you can do it just about anywhere. I mean, we surf these boards and we strap gear onto them, and I've actually taken them on camping trips down the Suwannee River and deep into the heart of the Everglades. And you can fish off them as well. So really they're multifunctional, and the thing that I love about them is they just pop up on top of the car, and there's not a lot of equipment that go along with them. So they come in a bunch of different sizes. You know, 12 to 14 foot is what most people paddle, and that'll give you the ability to take it out on a flat water day and tool around the bay, or when we get one of these hurricane swells coming up or a winter cold front, you can get out there in the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic and surf. And the great thing about surfing a stand-up paddleboard is because it's longer and faster, you can catch, you got all these little grommets, the little teenage surfers in on the first break, and then you get outside and you catch all the waves and zoom right by them. It's a great way for old guys to catch some waves.
It's dangerous. Come on.
It's not dangerous. You know, life is dangerous. You can walk out down the street and get hit by a car. You know, you can get hit by a piece of falling Soviet space junk. I mean, there's all different ways to get injured, and I wouldn't worry about on a stand-up paddleboard. You think that you don't have balance, they're wide, they're stable, and I guarantee you, even Mr. Media, if he would accept my challenge, I could get him up and paddling in 5 minutes.
Yeah, great, Terry. I'm now freaked out about Soviet junk falling from space, and you think I'm going to be brave enough to get out on one of these things?
Well, I guarantee you that
I
don't don't think that. I can promise you this: that if I teach you how to stand a paddleboard, that you won't be hit by Soviet space junk while you are paddleboarding.
You can promise that.
I promise that.
Okay, folks, you saw that. You heard that. I'll have to think about it. Maybe as the weather gets a little warmer.
Let's do it.
We are shooting this in January. I don't know that I want to.
All right, April. We'll be there. We'll have a date in April.
Thinking July.
I'm going to turn you into a waterman, Mr. Media.
God. All right. All right, Terry. Now we are in the diving area of the store. Behind you is the actual pool where they do scuba diving training, right?
Many lessons. Yes.
Do paddleboarding in there.
Kayaking. You can learn how to roll a kayak too.
All right. And I know you want to talk a little bit about maybe some Key West type adventures.
Well, you know, people don't realize that many people don't realize that Florida is one of the top diving destinations in the world. The Florida Keys have 1/10 the area of the Great Barrier Reef, but 10 times the divers. But you can dive all around the state. The East Coast has great drift diving. The Gulf of Mexico has great spearfishing and wreck diving. Up on the Panhandle, we have the Oriskany, a aircraft carrier that's been sunk. And if you go inland, you can dive the freshwater springs. You can do drift dives on some of the rivers. And if you get the proper training and you're willing to spend the time and money, you can learn how to cavern and cave dive in Florida as well.
Now, funny you should mention cavern and cave diving, because I want to ask you, I mean, your idea of an adventure, certainly in everyday adventures, is quite different from something, say, that Johnny Knoxville or Steve-O might be attracted to on Jackass, right? I mean, you're not...
That's because the name of the show is Jackass,
yeah.
And those guys are... But cave diving, for example, because I know that's what you're going to ask me about. Cave diving is an inherently dangerous sport and requires a lot of time and equipment to do it safely. And you got to train for it, but there's a real allure to it if you have ever been inside 100 feet down and a couple of 100 yards back in a cave. And that's why it has such a huge following here in Florida. Florida's caves are some of the most traveled in the world.
Is your job ever dangerous to the point where an editor says to you, your boss says to you, you know, Terry, that sounds like a lot of fun, but we don't want to, we don't want to lose you on the job.
I had a TV station call me the other day, and they wanted me to rappel down a skyscraper in downtown Tampa, and I was all set to do it. And as I was heading out the door, I asked my boss. I said, is this covered with our insurance? And he said, absolutely not. So I checked with my wife, and I said, am I allowed to do this? And she said, absolutely not. So lesson learned is don't ask permission. It's better to ask for forgiveness after you've done it.
Really? That's what you're going to stand on?
Yes, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Are there any other Florida adventures that you've declined on your own that you didn't need your wife to step in and tell you you're nuts?
No, I mean, I've raced offshore race boats, and I've taken dune buggies through the forest, and motorcycles, and hunted alligators and wild boar with a spear, and caught big fish, and cave diving. And I think that if you have the proper training and the proper equipment, and that's what's great about a place like Bill Jackson's, is they'll outfit you and give you everything you need. And you got to spend the time and learn from professionals, from people who really know what they're doing, give you the skills, give you the equipment, let you know what you're in for, and then you head out and do it. So I always try to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Now, we've talked a lot about adventures on the ground, like camping. You've talked a little about hunting. We've talked about swimming, water sports, cave diving. What about up in the air over Florida?
We have a big hot air balloon community, and I've done that before. And we also have, bungee jumping was popular for a while, and I've done bungee jumping a couple of times. But the problem with doing any kind of airborne adventure is when you're up in the air, you got to come down. And there's always that chance that you may fall or whatever type of equipment you have may fail, and when you hit the ground it doesn't feel good. That's why I try to stick to the water, because when you fall in the water it doesn't hurt as much.
Now, have readers ever challenged you to an adventure, or readers come up with some good ideas for you?
No, but that's a good idea. Maybe I could get another 20 years of just people challenging me to adventures and asking me to do things. Design your own adventure and send it to me.
Terry, do you think you'll eventually have enough new everyday adventures to fill a second volume?
Of course, more everyday adventures. I think there could be, gosh, I mean, I have 80 adventures in this book, and that just scratches the surface. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of adventures that you can do here in Florida. And that's just Florida, reaching out wherever you live. I guarantee you, if you live in Allegheny, PA, and I came to your house, within 20 minutes I could figure out 10 cool things that we could do within an hour's drive of your house. So all you got to do is look at a map and go.
Very cool. Well, folks, you can find Tampa Bay Times Outdoors editor Terry Tomalin's new book, Everyday Adventures, a Florida Outdoors Guide, in great bookstores everywhere, where you can order it right now at a great price at MrMedia.com. Terry, do you have a website, Twitter, Facebook, any of that kind of stuff? People can find you?
Terry Tomalin on Facebook, that's me, with an A.
With an A, one M, one L.
Yes.
That is right, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Okay. Terry, T-E-R-R-Y, Tomalin, T-O-M-A-L-I-N.
All right. Terry Tomalin, always good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
I'll see you in April when we do that paddleboarding segment.
Oh, God, go away, will you?
For more original interviews, surf over to our main website, mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. If you've enjoyed today's show, subscribe for free to Mr. Media via email, RSS, or iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Another good idea, download our new free Mr. Media mobile app in the Android market. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many parts of the internet. Show your support of Mr. Media by supporting our sponsors, including Audible. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/radio. Again, that's audibletrial.com/radio for your free audiobook. We're also supported by thepartyauthority.us. Call DJ Ira for all your party entertainment needs nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs, or visit their website, thepartyauthority.us. If you've got an idea for a guest, a comment on today's show, or would like to advertise on Mr. Media Radio, email me directly at bob@mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. You can also call our 24-hour listener line at 1-727-498-4711. Some messages may be used in an upcoming show, and unless you live next door to Mr. Media, there may be a toll charge. You can also follow Mr. Media on Facebook, Twitter, or our new YouTube and Vimeo video channels. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, this is Bob Andelman from Mr. Media. First of all, I want to thank you for years of support listening to this show. We're starting our 6th year, it's hard to believe, our 6th year as 2012 starts, and heading towards our 1,000th online podcast, audio and video. It's pretty amazing, frankly. I remember starting it several years ago thinking, this will never last. And podcasts, that's as stupid a word as blogging. But here we are, starting our 6th year and heading up to 1,000 interviews. And I want to thank everybody for listening and supporting the show. I also want to tell you that one of the things that's been very helpful for this show is Stitcher Radio. Yes, this is sort of a commercial. Now, there are millions of smartphone apps in the world, but I only use one several times a day, Stitcher Radio. I build my own radio station to listen to broadcast and online shows when I want and in the order I want. CNN News Update, Onion Radio News, WTF with Mark Maron, MSNBC's Morning Joe, Studio 60, the TechCrunch headlines, and of course, Mr. Media. It's free. It works on iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, Palm Pre,
and much more. And you can get it for free for yourself. Try it out. I guarantee you're going to love it. Stitcher.com/mrmedia. That's Stitcher.com/Mr. Media. You're going to love it. And thanks again for supporting the show.
Today on Mr. Media, we're live at Bill Jackson's Shop for Adventure in Pinellas Park, Florida, talking to Tampa Bay Times Outdoors editor Terry Tomalin. He's the author of a new book, Everyday Adventures, a Florida Outdoors Guide. Stick around. Terry's going to regale us with stories of exciting outdoor stuff he's done and enjoyed. You know, the kind of stuff I wouldn't do for $1 million.